Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to a special edition of PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games, and today I am joined by the one and only Rachel Doerrie of the Staff and Graph podcast. Resume, we could be here all day reciting that. Just she's qualified, trust me. Rachel, after listening to Staff and Graph, I know how excited you are to discuss the Arizona Coyotes land auction. This is like your favorite shit in the world. It's what gets you going in the morning. Now, I don't think we need to do a deep dive here. I don't think we need to do a deep dive here or anything. But this whole thing has just become a complete shit show. How do you see this ending now with the relocation rumors to Salt Lake City, which could be like by the end of the regular season? The land auction isn't until the day or two before the draft. Like, where is this going, do you think?
Yeah. Honestly, we're going to have to talk about this on tonight's episode for the podcast. And it's just like, why? Like, why, when we are a week out from the playoffs and we have one of the best playoff races going, are we listening and talking about a land auction? Like what are we doing right now? And the one thing I will say that really upsets me is you've seen the impact that having the Arizona Coyotes in Arizona has had. Josh Doan, Austin Matthews, Matthew Nyes. There's a number of grassroots play. Specifically, what I don't think people realize is in the women's game. The girls hockey program coming out of Arizona is absolutely fantastic. It's frankly one of the best in the United States. And so having hockey there's clearly an appetite for hockey. The problem that they have is they have not had an owner that is remotely competent at like business, never mind running an actual hockey team. They need somebody like a Michael Andlauer to come in, actually cares about hockey, is interested in making it. Honestly, they need Mark Cuban. That's really what they need. But what I don't like is the fact that like media people are complaining that Arizona won't make players available to talk about it. And it's like, the players aren't who you should be asking. They're finding out on social media with the rest of us, which, by the way, is a completely ridiculous thing that's happening. But those are not those are not the people you need to be asking. You should be asking to speak to Alex Morello, Javier Gutierrez, Bill Armstrong. Don't go in and ask a 20-year-old who can barely make mac and cheese, like what they're going to do if they have to move to Utah, because I guarantee you that kid has no idea, no clue at all. And so I think that bugs me. Like, I saw tweets from like Oilers media being like, they're not going to allow us to ask about this. What else are we supposed to ask about? I'm like, I don't know. The fact that they beat the Canucks last night, or the fact that Dylan Guenther had 4 points against the team that traded away the pick that ultimately resulted in his draft. Like, there's just so many other questions you could ask. So I think at the end of the day, it's a goddamn nuisance. That's what it is.
It is. And I was just looking at their cap friendly real quick. I heard on your show that they have no defenseman signed for They have no defenseman under contract for next season. They don't have anyone with a no move clause. There's a couple modified no trades. The only thing I would want to ask the players is, are you going to file a grievance with the union? Like, you just have to up and move? Like, but there are no moves, so I guess that uncomplicates things a little bit. But the whole thing, like, yeah, it sucks for the players. It sucks for the fans. There is clearly that appetite because they've figured out how to stay here all these years, and it looks like it's just going to get taken out from under them. My only guess as to how this ends is the team moves to Salt Lake City, and 5 years from now, when that new arena's built, maybe they get an expansion team, and we're at 34 with Atlanta and Arizona. That's my guess.
Which is honestly, Phil, it's honestly so stupid. Like, you need half of this league straight up wouldn't exist if not for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Montreal Canadiens, New York Rangers, Chicago Blackhawks. Like, straight up, Philadelphia makes money. Like, they're profitable, but like not to the point where like they're doling out huge revenue sharing checks. I see teams clown on the Leafs, and every single time I want to be like, do you understand that your team straight up wouldn't exist without the Leafs? Like, your team requires the Leafs to play to even exist because they rely on revenue sharing. And so I don't think we should be adding teams to a league when more than half the league requires basically 5 teams to keep it afloat. Like, that's totally unfair for those 5 teams. And frankly, like, for the health of the league, hockey is just not in a place where you can afford more growth. We have a team playing in a 5,000 seat arena right now. And you want to sit here and tell me that we need like expansion? Like, it's greediness, and there's no concept or thought given to viability of the team, like, at all.
You know, I understand where you're coming from in this. I am pro expansion, and one of the reasons I'm pro expansion is because of this Hart Trophy race we're seeing right now, and how these star players are just absolutely going wild on the league. I have to believe, because in the course of the last few years, there's 2 more teams, which means, 60 more guys who may or may not be NHL players added to this league to fill it out. And so the cream really rises to the top. And so I want to ask you about this Hart Trophy race, because it is based on the Vegas odds. I'm using the BetParks sports book because that's our sponsor here at PHLY, but they're basically the same everywhere. Nathan MacKinnon favorited at minus 400. Kucherov is plus 400. McDavid 10-1. Matthews 20-1. Crosby 150-1. Panarin and Hellebuck not even listed. The Vegas odds and what we're seeing, I feel like, don't match up. How do you think this thing goes?
Yeah, I think we're kind of at a situation right now where I see it basically shaking out like this. Nikita Kucherov is going to win the Art Ross. Nathan MacKinnon is going to win the Hart. Austin Matthews is very clearly going to win the Rocket. And everyone's pretty much, and McDavid's going to hit 100 assists, and everyone's going to go home happy, because then you've got pretty much like even distribution for everything, and nobody should really complain. I got to be honest with you. I think this Kucherov Hart debate is really stupid. He's not in the conversation for me right now. Like, he's just straight up, like, I get it. And honestly, to a degree, the reason McDavid is in the conversation, won the 100 assists, and Kucherov is in that neighborhood too. He's probably going to get it. But McDavid took his team from like second last in the league to potentially winning a division. That's nuts.
That's value,
is the word I would use there, right? And then you have Nathan MacKinnon, who is actually a psychopath on ice. Like, he plays, I think I said this the other night, he plays such a violent play style. It looks like, I don't know if you've ever played Super Smash Brothers. You know, like Captain Falcon, he does like the Falcon Punch. It feels like that's how Nathan MacKinnon plays hockey. Every time he gets skating, it's like Falcon Punch, instead it's like Nathan Skates kind of thing. And it's just like one of those things. And so for me, I look at the most impactful player in the NHL this year. I think it's got to go MacKinnon. And frankly, it probably needs to be Matthews after that, because if you score 70 goddamn goals in this league, it's pretty hard to argue you're not the most valuable player in the league, because you scored 70 goals.
I really, like, I see this. Austin Matthews probably finishes 3rd or 4th. And with the way this thing shakes out, like, listen, this is an awesome Hart Trophy race. We're talking about a bunch of amazing players here.
The best in years.
But the goal scoring is being really underrated in my, like, it's the hardest, it's the point of the game, and he's done it now at a pace better than anyone since the lockout. Even if he doesn't hit 70, he already beat Ovechkin's 65. Like, that's incredible to me. And to think it's like, yeah, he's going to finish 3rd or 4th. Wow, man, like, this has been an awesome year. And it gets back to the Arizona thing. Like, we have this great race. We have the great playoff race, and we're talking about a land auction. Like, it's just really, the timing is so ridiculous.
This is what I don't get about Matthews, is I feel like the goal scoring has been such an overwhelming talking point that people forget this guy could be in the conversation for the Selke. Like, he's top 3 in takeaways. He's consistently in the top role. Like, when you look at John Tavares has taken a huge step back this year because he's in his 30s, and like, that was expected. David Kampf is fine, but like, come on. And so when you look at it, Matthews is carrying the bulk of the load, and we're talking about a guy who, all 200 feet of the ice, he's not in the Barkov Stahl conversation, but I was talking with Dom Lucic a couple weeks back, and we're kind of sitting here and we're like, he's on the ballot, though. Like, you put 5 guys on the ballot. So if you're on the ballot for the Selke and you have nearly 70 goals, I feel like it's pretty hard to argue against an MVP case at that point, because we're basically saying you're the best goal scorer in the league by far, not close. And you're one of the best defensive forwards in the league. So exactly what area aren't you dominant at this point? Like that's kind of where we're at. And so I look at that and I'm like, Kucherov, nowhere near the Selke conversation. That guy couldn't kill a penalty to save his life. Nathan MacKinnon doesn't really kill penalties. But overwhelmingly, because Colorado lacks depth and they're really top line heavy, he's kind of the guy. Whereas Tampa has other weapons, as we're seeing. And so you look at this and I go, I think Matthews is kind of being disrespected, never mind goals, but like for his well-rounded game.
I will say with Kucherov, the little to his team disclaimer there on the award, and the fact that he's outpacing like Braden Point by 50 points, like that is impressive. But I wouldn't put him ahead of McKinnon. Probably not Matthews, probably not Kucherov, or probably not McDavid. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But I do think it's kind of been written since the beginning. It's McKinnon's award to lose.
Well, and the one thing I will say about this race is like it's the best it's been in years, and there is zero, not one negative excuses to leave any of those four guys off your ballot. You get 5 names that go on the ballot, and every single ballot should have those 4 names and then a combination of Connor Hellebuck, Roman Josi, and Artemi Panarin. Like those are the guys. And if you are leaving any of those 4 guys off your Hart ballot, frankly, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. And I say that as part of the PHWA. Like, if you watched this season and you don't think that those are the 4 of the 5 most valuable players in the league, I'm not convinced you know what you're doing.
Crosby doesn't factor in for you at all?
He's in there, but it's very hard. Like, Connor Hellebuck is, you want to talk about being disrespected. Connor Hellebuck's getting disrespected here. Like, the season the Jets are having is largely because of him. He's going to win the Vezina, and it won't be close. Like, he might win it unanimously.
That's the Hellebuck. Like, if the Jets hadn't had this fall off, I think there's a real MVP case there, but it makes it just easier on the voters who don't want to evaluate a goaltender against forwards. So it's like, oh, well, they're not in the President's Trophy race anymore, you'll get your
But it
Vezina.
almost makes it easier, because it's like, okay, when Connor Hellebuck isn't Superman, the Jets are terrible. So, like, is he more valuable than we think he is? Probably, honestly. Like, but I just think when you're voting on the Hart, if those 4 guys aren't on the ballot, you should have your vote taken away. Like, this is just a slam dunk no-brainer at this point. We can argue about the Norris. We can argue, like, who should be on the ballot kind of thing. We can argue about other awards, the Lady Bing, whatever. We're not arguing about the Hart. This is silliness.
I don't know if I've ever heard a Lady Bing argument. I'm going to be honest with you. Now, we have the Hart Trophy. This is a heavyweight fight. I mean, you name these players, it's like, yeah, these are the best players in the league. The Eastern Conference playoff race is a pillow fight in comparison, but it is compelling. It's definitely compelling. It has been frustrating as hell watching the Flyers just collapse over the last few weeks. But, we have the Isles, the Penguins, the Capitals, the Red Wings, all kind of in this mix here. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, if you're a Flyers fan, I think you're a little nuts if you're not impressed with this season. I understand that the finish has been disappointing, but if somebody put a gun to your head at the beginning of October and said, the Philadelphia Flyers are going to be in a playoff conversation until the first week of April, are you good with that? Every single Flyers fan would have been like, oh my God, what? Yeah, like, that's amazing. But because of the season that they had and now they're falling off, first of all, this is totally expected. A rookie goaltender, I think the last rookie goaltender to come in and have any level of success immediately was like Steve Mason, as it pertains to like being a starter. Sam Ersson has come in and had to play way more games than he should have. And that's way too much on a rookie goaltender to expect that he's going to hold up for the entire season. And so I think, given the fact that we all thought Philadelphia was in the Celebrini sweepstakes and they're actually in the playoff race until the second week of April, I think you kind of have to be happy with that season. Now, on the other side of things, the Islanders make a coaching change. They look like they're moving in the right direction now. If Ilya Sorokin starts to play well, that's going to be a problem. Then you got the Pittsburgh Penguins, who nobody knew what the hell was going on this season. And then Sidney Crosby said, I've had enough. And Alex Nedeljkovic decided he was going to play goalie. And that's pretty much all they needed. And so I think tonight's game against Detroit, between Pittsburgh and Detroit, is the biggie, right? Whoever loses, if they lose in regulation, that's pretty much the nail in the coffin. Now, if it goes to overtime, it's probably a little bit different. I think if you're asking me, like, I want the Isles and the Pens to get in. Those are my two teams. I think we can all agree that playoffs are better when Sid's in the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. I am hoping for a situation where Carolina can play Pittsburgh.
Yes.
I don't know how it works, but somewhere that would just be ridiculous. It would be a lot of fun.
Pittsburgh wins out and the Islanders get 3 points, I want to say. Pittsburgh could finish third and play Carolina in the first round, which would be the peak of just a chef's kiss storyline.
It really long live the loser point. Last thing I want to ask you here, Rachel, is I'm going to give you $100 free bet at Bill's Sportsbook. You have $100. Okay. You can put it on any team on the board right now to win the Stanley Cup. Where are you going with it?
Dallas.
Oh, I am getting so much
I did not even have to think about that.
Charlie O'Connor is the original Dallas stan. I am getting so much Dallas love right now.
Yeah, Dallas. I put money on Dallas, I think, back in November. And it's looking really good right now from a cash out perspective. Dallas looks insane. They look so good. Like, even I think that they're 10-1-0 in their last 11. You look at the last game against the Sabres, they started off not great, and then from the second period on, they ran Buffalo right out of the rink. Like, it wasn't even close. And they're in tough, right? Because you got that Central Division that's got Winnipeg and Colorado and everything. But man, here's the thing, is like, we don't know if McDavid's healthy. Like, he's clearly banged up, which is why he's missing games. I'm never going to bet against healthy Draisaitl McDavid because those are nuclear weapons, and then Zach Hyman's having a year. But if McDavid's not healthy, that's like, thanks for coming at this point, right? In the same way that if McKinnon's not healthy, thanks for coming is what it is, where Dallas has so much depth, right? You got Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski, Stankoven, Ben, Sagan, Johnston. Then on the back end, you're like Tanev, Heiskanen, Lindell, Harley. And then in net, you got Jake Ottinger. And it's like, okay, do you guys have a weak spot? Like, what are we doing here? So it's hard not to back Dallas right now.
I'm looking forward to seeing these Western Conference playoffs a whole lot. All the potential matchups are a whole lot of fun. And if my Flyers are out of it, it's some low-stress hockey. All I get to do is just watch the playoffs. So
I'm going to be big stressed, Bill. Big time stressed, okay?
I long for those days again. I long for those days again. Rachel Doerrie, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for hanging with us a lot this season. Hope to talk to you in the off season as well. Where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, I'm on the Staff and Graph podcast. That's where you can hear me chatting hockey. I'm at ESPN now, so if you would like to read some fun hockey stuff, you can find it on ESPN, which is kind of cool. And then I know a lot of people have been curious about betting wise. All of my models and stuff live on a site called Betalytics, so you can just kind of Google that. It's in my Twitter bio. It gives you unfettered access to my models, which I know people have been asking for. So those are the 3 places that you're going to find me.
All right. Thank you so much, Rachel. We'll talk to you again soon.
We all silly like the mayor.